Hello? Is this Narnia? Where's Mr. Tumnus? Where the hell am I? Oh, now how did I get here? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. I think that's where I am. I am no stranger to a good mind palace, a secret and grandiose castle hidden behind the moats and troughs of my mind. A place with ceilings as tall as the sky and made of crystals. Walls covered in the darkest of vines, stained red and brown. Woodland creatures scurrying up their lengths looking for tart berries, always ripe, for they're always in season. Birds sing to their young, high up on the walls, trying to keep track of their nests. Fountains around every corner, giving the constant and comforting sound of running water. The smell of fresh rain on green grass. But then, take the fourth door on your left, and you'll find the library. Donde está la biblioteca? Sealed and dry to keep the books crisp at their edges. A sleek, black, grand piano by a fan of stained glass windows letting in a kaleidoscope of colors right onto their keys. A high fireplace in the center, with all the comforts one could need surrounding. Spiral staircases raised to every floor for ease of access to every genre. But, let's face it, it's all fiction. This is my Labrynth. If I could travel to this place, physically, I would be deemed a lost person to this world. I'd simply never return. If I could bring people to this place, well, I wouldn't. I would keep this place a secret, if it were real. If it were more than just a place I go to within myself when the tasks of this world seem too mundane to accept. But if such an infinite place were to compromise my own mind due to its vastness, how could I ever fully appreciate its beauty? How could I learn about its every room and veranda if I were subject to decay within its barriers? I suppose I'd find someone else who could help me. It may not seem so at first, but this is the premise for today's discussion. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. A hypnotizing and frustratingly beguiling story of a man named Piranesi and his life in the house, which doesn't look like a house at all. There are a few world-building elements one must open their mind and be ready to absorb before entering the labyrinth of this novel. Drenched in dark academia descriptions and tantalizing imagery, Clarke forwards the book with an impeccably accurate foreshadowing quote from The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. I am the great scholar, the magician, the adept, who is doing the experiment. Of course, I need subjects to do it on. At first read, this quote seems enticing at best, but in hindsight, it seems as though Clarke may have steeped in this quote and brewed the story itself from these few words. Piranesi is not our main character's name. It is what the other calls him. The other is what Piranesi calls the other man in the house. The house is an infinite and celestial structure made up of infinite rooms and corridors, halls and vestibules, flooded with seas, currents from unknown origin, and the creatures that inhabit them. The house is made of marble and stone, pillars and statues. The statues are of people and animals, both mythical and, well, I suppose anything would be mythical in a world of two people. There are birds, though, and sea creatures, as mentioned. At one point, our narrator makes the acquaintance of an albatross and its mate. He uses this event to name the year in which he is telling his story, the year the albatross came to the southwestern holes. We become well acquainted with the organized structure Piranesi adopts when writing his entries due to its repetition, forwarding every entry with the long-titled year and month. The book is written in epistolary format, as we are reading the diary entries of Piranesi, for he is an excellent record keeper, and declares himself as the keeper of this house. He is also the keeper of the dead. 13 dead, to be exact. A man with a biscuit box, a folded-up child, none with names, but all with distinct descriptions. He visits their bones often and brings offerings of food and water. He keeps them safe and honored, yet does not remember them as more than bones. He meets with the other often. They converse about a multitude of topics regarding the philosophy of the world they inhabit, but always circle back to the work, seeking knowledge, documenting their experiences in the house. The other performs rituals and experiments, using the knowledge Piranesi has collected to better his craft. If I were to describe the character of Piranesi in one word, it would be wholesome. He is a good man, if ever one existed. We find ourselves delightfully lost in the confines of his mind, in different timelines depending on his descriptive accounts and detailed dates. We, as the reader, must keep track of such timelines to determine where we are with Piranesi in the labyrinth of the house, but as I said, it is not of great effort since he is so very detailed. In the beginning of the novel, I felt as though I was daydreaming myself. I relished in listening to the story and being transported to this world of beautiful solitude and exploring the house with the narrator. These diary entries felt less like letters and more like a stream of consciousness of a very intelligent yet lost person. We don't know this narrator's past, his accounts as a child, his ability to hold a relationship with anyone except the other. But what we can conclude from his entries is that he is scholarly. He is good-hearted and hard-working. He is grateful and appreciative. He is resourceful, agile, and young. And he is spiritual. Piranesi is connected to the house in a way we don't see from the other. His innate gratitude for the house is unyielding to the point of worship, but is never too in-your-face or annoying like some practices. He expects himself to be in his early 30s, yet even he is not entirely sure. To him, it just seems as though that is how it's always been. While reading, I did not know if the story was going to turn to horror or not. Its enticing tone and rhythm holds you, even if nothing of great importance seems to be happening. You feel the need to pay very close attention either way, just in case any detail may come back later, which it usually does. Nothing is on accident in the house. Everything is connected, and through Piranesi's findings, we fall deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole in a trance. At first, it is a mystery novel, if I were to have to place it in a specific genre, but then the mystery turns philosophical. I listened to this book, and honestly, I feel like in this case, it may be the better method. It is narrated by Chiwetel Ejiofor, I hope I said his name right, who you may know from his work as an actor, and I think he is the best voice I have ever heard narrate an audiobook, which is saying a lot, but just, wow. His tones and cadence, his emphasis and pauses, all entrance the listener into the mind of Piranesi. His voice is like smooth silk on freshly shaved skin. It just feels good. Here, have a quick listen.
When the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of 3 tides. This is something that happens only once every 8 years.
See what I mean? It truly enhances the reading experience, I felt. An experience filled with welcomed confusion about what exactly I was reading. I'd like to get into the mind of Susanna Clarke for a moment and understand methods in structuring the novel as she did. It seems Clarke has an affinity for C.S. Lewis and the Tales of Narnia. In the novel, Piranesi's favorite statue, or one he references with great admiration, is that of a faun. Sound familiar? And is alluded to the significance of such a character since Piranesi describes the half-man, half-goat as triggering a distant memory or dream of a faun speaking to a girl in the snow, who we all know to be Lucy in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, meeting Mr. Tumnus. Speculation. Furthermore, we later learn the other's name to be Valentine Ketterly, another Narnia Easter egg with a much more spot-on reference. Ketterly is none other than the magician himself, referenced in the forwarding quote of the book, the man who seeks subjects to perform his experiments on. See? It's pretty spot on if you're into the whole lore. The other is a suspicious character at first, and although Piranesi seems to see him as a trustworthy friend who brings him gifts, though rare, I never felt myself at ease when he entered a scene. Come to find, my intuition was correct. Usually is. For the other is a member of a cult of scholars obsessed with the knowledge of the house. A 16th person is brought into the mix. Perhaps such a person is myself, as the reader. Perhaps it is not. But one thing Ketterly makes certain Piranesi knows: 16 is the enemy, and must be killed. Speaking to 16 will make Piranesi go mad, and should therefore be avoided at all costs. This form of kidnappers' manipulation and isolation takes a completely different meaning in the form of Valentine Ketterly. The mystery of this person brings up questions about the true nature of the labyrinth and how vast it may be if only 16 people were to have ever existed. The book takes unexpected turns and roundabouts with its tone. When Piranesi finds his past journals and learns the truth about how he arrived in the house and who he may have been, a game of chess ensues between him and the other. Since Piranesi is no fool, despite what the reader may think of him, He is strategic and alludes to the fact that he knows the truth of their past when meeting with Ketterly. Even when learning of his role as a pawn in Ketterly's scheme, he keeps his head and thinks about his moves without acting rash or impulsive. The introduction of a cult having a hand in the demise of Piranesi made me bump up the narration to 1.5x speed. I needed to know more immediately. Remember when I mentioned the book being drenched in dark academia? Well, here comes the flood. Ketterly is a loyal follower and participant of an academic cult founded by an infamous scholar, a man who has been to prison for his crimes in manipulation and charged with kidnapping. His claims to have found the house and a way to both enter and leave its walls calls for a following of more like-minded and hungry individuals such as Ketterly. But wait, I mentioned kidnapping before, yes? Ah, yes. Why do you think this cult-leading scholar felt the need to kidnap a man? Is this perhaps Piranesi's predecessor? Piranesi himself? You'll just have to read the book and find out. Once we sift through the pieces of this puzzle of a novel and feel their edges, we can spread them out before us and finally see the whole thing and absorb it as one work of philosophical art. In its entirety, when finally fully consumed, it is a story about self. The book is a mirror of sorts. What came first, the artist or the statue? How could such statues exist if nothing but the statue has ever existed? This questioning of self not only comes from the contents of the house, but also from Piranesi as a character himself. When we look at Piranesi as the other sees him, we see a naive and unknowing man who may be hindered by his empathetic nature and scientific curiosity. His inherent religious or spiritual qualities could be seen as a form of distraction from the meaning of his presence, to catalog the house. The way Piranesi describes the house is almost that of sensuality and abundant gratitude for its beauty and sustenance. The beauty of the house is immeasurable, its kindness infinite. His innocence in every aspect is charming and refreshing as a reader, to be introduced to a grown man with no agenda against any other person. The house is valuable because it is the house. It is enough in and of itself. It is not the means to an end. Even when presented with the facts about the other, he tries to present reason in the hopes of preserving all life possible. The name the other has chosen for him, Piranesi, is not elaborated on in its meaning, but the name is actually a reference to the Italian artist from the 1700s, Giovanni Battista Piranesi. He was best known for his work as an architect and would use his artistic eye to create labyrinth-like structures he would call prisons. Interesting. After reading this masterpiece of a novel and enjoying it fully, I did some mild research for this video, and the rabbit hole just kept going and going and going, which made me appreciate Susanna Clarke both as a writer and as a person herself, for being so wonderfully curious and detailed, somewhat like Piranesi himself. Her writing style has an air of vintage delight. Not only is it structured and factual, but whimsical and curious as well, a perfect balance of both Alice and the Hatter. Step back from this novel after reading it and you see the message, like one of those optical illusion street paintings. From an angle, you see the actual picture, but up close it may not make as much sense. This was the first book I read by Clarke, and am just itching to read more. Some of her other titles include Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, A Game of English Magic, which sounds exactly what I'm looking for at all times. The Ladies of Grace Adieu and The Sandman, Book of Dreams, among others. Her list is not vast, but I assume she works in quality rather than quantity, which is something I can appreciate. Alright, that's all I have for you all today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like this video if you liked it, and comment down below a quick description of what your own personal labyrinth would look like. You already heard mine. Make sure to subscribe and click that bell, of course. Today's shoutout goes to Juvie. You read The Handmaid's Tale at age 14? Did I read that comment correctly? I am so sorry I wasn't there to warn you, but happy birthday. Late birthday. You're also my only follower on Goodreads, an app I downloaded in anticipation for this channel and then basically completely forgot about, so yes. Who else uses Goodreads? Please, let me know. Also, if you'd like to listen to Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, as I did, you can do so for free with a new Audible subscription. Linked down below, or it's right here on your screen. Alright, I'm off to go lay under my bed and enter my mind palace and invite no one. Stay lost, keep reading, and remember, respect your house. Goodbye.
Nothing was rolling.
Nothing was rolling.
Nothing.
Nothing was rolling.
Nope.
Oh my god. I'm gonna kill you. I was really giving it my all.
Really? Okay.